Hey guys, in today's video, we're gonna talk about how close should you stand to the golf ball. All right guys, Eric here at the Bethlehem Golf Club. I want to talk to you today about how close you should stand to the golf ball at your setup position. Now, before we dive into that, and something that's really relevant to this video in particular is what I want to talk to you about today, which is Live View Golf. Live View is a way that you can give yourself feedback. You guys hear me say feedback all the time. It's simply this: you need to see yourself as you're practicing. You can't just guess. Feels are not real. You're gonna have a really difficult time changing your swing unless you record yourself. Now, the best way to record yourself is by seeing yourself simultaneously as you're actually doing your swing, and that's what Live View is all about. You simply set the Live View up behind you, you put your iPhone or your iPad or camera in front of you, you can watch yourself as you're doing the movement. No going back and checking your phone, no guessing at what's going on. It is genuinely the best way that you can get feedback. It's the #1 thing we always recommend because it's the best training aid we use. So check out Live View Golf. I beg you guys to go at least check it out and see what it's all about. We'll put a link in the description down below. I know it will help you guys in terms of changing your swing, getting better at the game. So check out Live View Golf. Now, how you're going to use the Live View, and one of the first things you need to check is your setup position. Now, distance away from the ball is something a lot of us may take for granted, but the reality is there is a distance away from the ball that we should stand, and maybe it's something you haven't thought about or something you have thought about and you want answers to. So let's talk about how to do that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of do this in two different ways. And to me, there's two different ways you can check distance away from the ball or kind of get yourself in that right position. The first way is to get your body in the right position first, and then get up to the golf ball. So you can get the right distance away from the ball by having your body in the correct position or posture at address. That's part one. And part two is by actually literally measuring it, right? Literally measuring how far from the ball you are, from the ball to your toe line. And we're gonna do that. We're gonna measure it with a club. We're gonna actually measure it with measuring tape and see how far you actually are and use that as a reference. So let's do both of those. Let's get you answers to how far you should be specifically. Let's start with the posture and body motions, and then we'll work into the distance away. Okay, so distance away from the ball. Now, how I usually will coach someone in person to do this is first by getting your body in the correct posture and then finding the golf ball from there. So what is the correct posture? How do we get ourselves in that correct position? So if I take my kind of normal setup, not even to the ball, just on the side of it first, and I'm standing straight up and down like so, it's about my normal posture. And if I get into a golf posture, that would look more like this, right? So here's my normal standing. Here's my golf posture setup. So what actually changed? Well, two things mainly, right? Number one is my legs went from being straight up and down when I stood to having some amount of bend in them. How much bend specifically should you have? Should be to the point where your kneecaps, if I drew a straight line down on the camera or the Live View like you should, that line would be at the balls of my feet or at the edges of my shoelaces, kind of where my foot, base of my foot meets my toes. That's how much knee bend I should have. If I'm locked straight back here, or if I have my knees past that, that's gonna change where the pressure is in my feet. So I wanna have my kneecaps bent over the balls of my feet. Now, when I do that, that's also where I want the pressure to be in my feet. I don't wanna set up with my pressure all the way on the toes or all the way on the heels. I don't even really wanna be dead middle. I'd like to be just forward of middle at the balls of my feet, the same place my kneecap should be. So where the edge of your shoelaces are, the balls of the feet, that's where the pressure should be in your feet, and that's how much knee bend you should have. No more than that, no less than that. And the last part is I also have to bend over from the top. And really there's gonna be some amount of bend from my hips, and then there's gonna be some amount of kind of rounding. I'm gonna put those two pieces together. It's not purely just bend from the hips, and it's not purely rounding. There is a mix and match of both of those. I'm gonna bend from the hip some and round some. The goal here is to get the back of your armpits, if I went like this, the back part of your armpits here, if you just straight line down to the ground, you wanna have those, or that line, basically over the balls of your feet as well, right? So if you take a longer object, like when I'm in person, I always take a really long alignment rod. The person will take their setup. You could have a mirror behind you, and you put a stick down the end of the back of the armpit, and you want to have that hang more or less right at the end of your balls of the feet. If you're way too far back on your heels or you're way too bent over, that line's going to be in a different spot. You don't want to be back here or way too far forward. You want to have that right over the balls of your feet. So really, those are the 3 checkpoints that I'm using with people to get their posture correct. I want the pressure in the balls of the feet, step 1. I want the kneecaps over the balls of the feet, step 2. And then I want the armpits over the balls of the feet, step 3. So if you do that straight line down that armpit, like we did in our PGA Tour checkpoint video with Hideki Matsuyama, it'll hit all those spots. It'll go back of armpit, kneecaps, and balls of the feet. Now, if I'm in that address position, my arms, I have an 8-iron here, my arms are gonna hang basically straight line down. If you drew a line from your shoulder, kind of through your elbow, that should go right down in front of your toe line, okay? So those are the pieces, I guess there's 4 of them there really, that I'm looking for, that if you do those, you could get the distance away without really having to think about it. One more time, pressure in the balls of the feet, kneecaps to the balls of the feet, armpits to the balls of the feet, arms hang straight down if you just relax them, and they hang straight down over the toe line. So if I did that and got the posture correct, and I put a club in, this is where this would sit, the butt of the club being like my belt buckle. This would be my distance away. So now I keep this, and I just kind of walk myself into the golf ball, and I say, okay, do I still have those same things? Is the pressure still here? Are my knees still there? Are my armpits still? Did I do something to maneuver it? Like if that feels different for you, you might kind of adjust at the end. I don't want you to do that. I want you to get that position correct. So option number 1, again, is get those parts correct, have yourself set back here, and then keep those, walk yourself into the golf ball, confirm those positions are correct, and then you can go ahead and hit and make a swing from there. That's the posture part, how you do it. Let's talk about actually measuring the distance. Okay, so let's talk about actually measuring the distance away. Now, what I would do again first, ideally, is I do those posture pieces, but then once you do those pieces and you get that correct and you look in the mirror and you confirm that that's correct, you want to be able to kind of check that or have that to go back to make sure you're at the correct distance over time. And so what I normally would do with people is one of 2 options. Either we actually literally measure it with a measuring tape, which we'll do, or I use a club to kind of measure how far away. So let me show you what I would do there. Let's say I kind of went in, right? Let's say I confirm my pieces, my pressure, my feet, kneecaps, armpits. Let's say I got that all correct. And I said, all right, I confirmed that this is my perfect distance away from the ball. What I would do from here is I'd take a club and I'd put that on my toe line. So I go like this. Now I have a distance away from the ball. I have my club and I have the golf ball. And what I would always do with people is just take another club. So I just grab my 7-iron instead of my 8-iron, and I'd put the butt of the club against the shaft, and I'd measure how many steps. If you see your irons, they have little steps or indentations on the shaft, and I'd measure. I'd say, all right, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm 6 steps down. That would be my part. Or I could look at the logo on the bottom. You see this little TC Tour Concept on the bottom, a little shout out there. And I'd say, okay, I'm this far away from the Tour Concept, right? Maybe I'm literally 2 golf balls away from the logo on my shaft. That would be one way that I can also measure it. So you just take another club, you get your alignments perfect, you take a second club and measure it, or you can put a piece of tape on the club so you know how far you are away. And then gradually over time, you get to the range you set up and say, all right, this feels right, but I'm really not sure. Or I say, oh my gosh, I feel really far away. Let me check it. Okay, I put this down. I bring my 7-iron out and I say, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not that same distance. I'm actually too far. I was 2 balls away. Before I was here, now I'm 1 inch away. I know I need to get closer. So if you get the perfect spot good, you can do that and use that as a measuring, or you can actually just use a measuring tape. So if I did the same thing, I'd make sure I got in there good. You see like the baseline of all of this is getting your posture correct, right? So I go in here, let's say I have my good posture again, I put this down, and then I just literally measure it. So I don't know how far I am with an 8-iron, but let's find out. I'll go to the base of the ball, and the base of this is about 19 inches. So I'm 19 inches, about 1.7 inches there away from the golf ball. That's what I am with an 8-iron. Now that's my mark, 19 inches. If I have the correct posture, I just maybe jot that down. And if I want to measure that over time, right, or just put a pole there and mark it, find a way to double check the distance away from the ball. That's really all that you have to do here now. Now, as the clubs get longer, right, because inevitably that's going to be a question. What about the wedges? What about this 5-iron drive, whatever? This is an 8-iron guideline that I'm 19 inches. The goal as my clubs get longer is to still keep the same posture pieces. Okay, I'm still trying to get kneecaps, back of armpits over the balls of the feet. Obviously, as the clubs get longer, I'm gonna be a little bit taller and I'm gonna be a little bit farther away from the ball. But if I get my distance away with my 8-iron and get comfortable with that and get the balls on my feet and all that stuff correct, it's gonna be an easy transition in terms of the other clubs. You don't have to measure all of them. I would just measure one of them and then use that through the bag. Now, the last caveat that I'll say as you go through here is one piece that can really mess up your distance away from the ball unless you feel it is where the pressure in your feet is. And so if I got myself neutral, right, I just want you guys to know as a caveat, if I took my normal setup, I was in a good position, and all I did was shift my pressure more towards my toes. You see how that puts the club head farther out? Now this is what feels comfortable to me. And so I would start to get myself too far away from the ball if I'm too far on my toes. Same thing applies here. If I'm neutral and I get my pressure back on the heels and I keep everything else the same, that brings the club into me, which would mean I would want to get in closer to the ball and have my weight back on my heels. If your pressure goes too far forward or too far back, your distance away might get messed up. You have to make sure you get to keep the pressure on the balls of your feet. And then there's also, you can reverse engineer that same thing. Meaning if you're taking your setup and your pressure is really far back on the balls of the feet, 98 times out of 100, that means you're too close to it. Okay, you can use that as a checkpoint too. Or if you sit up and you're like, holy cow, I'm really on my toes, my heels are off the ground, you're gonna be too far away from it. You would never be really close and too far on your toes, right? You'd be too far away and too far on your toes. So get the body positions correct, use everything over the balls of your feet as your guideline, arms straight down. Do it with one club, just an 8-iron, and you'll be good through the bag. Actually measure it so you have that as a starting point. And then over time, check the pressure in your feet and let the pressure in your feet be a guiding factor for you to determine that you are the correct distance or not. If you're off too far on your toes or heels at a dress, too close to the ball, too far away, there will be some compensations made later on. We see it all the time. So why not ensure we get this part correct? Hopefully that makes sense. You guys have any questions, always leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe if you haven't. Another reminder, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are live here on YouTube for Rapid Fire Golf. We'd love to see you guys there.